Hi, my name is Lorraine Conn, also known as LC Conn. I'm the author of the One True Child series and Realm of Dragons Fight for the Crown. Both the series and the standalone book are fantasy, but I have been known to write other genres, but they are not published yet. Recently, I took to Facebook and held a poll asking which one intrigued some readers more. This is the one that they chose. It's called Ancient History, and it's about a woman who must face the decisions she made as a teenager. So here we go. Chapter 1, Ancient History. The opaque glass door slid apart with a loud whir, and Ashley Preston was confronted with the noise and sight of a great mass of people. Their eyes slipped past her to search for their own loved ones behind. Standing tall amongst them was the smiling, familiar, and more than welcome sight of her older brother, Robbie. After fighting her way through the surging mass, she dropped the heavy bag she had in her hands and threw herself into his waiting and caring arms, as a tear formed in her eye. She was finally home. For 15 years, she had been away from her native country, living across the Tasman Sea in Australia with her now ex-husband, Andrew. They had been married for 18 years, with only the first 3 of those spent near her family. He had moved across the ditch for his work, and she had happily followed. At that point in time, she would have followed him to the ends of the earth. She was in love. They had started again in that new country that was so familiar, but just that little bit different from New Zealand. They had made friends and were soon surrounded by a caring group, and both started new careers in which they were very successful at. As most young couples did, the pair had hoped for kids, but they never came. After that painful moment when they found out they couldn't have them, Andrew decided that they wouldn't try any other avenues, and she went along with it. Instead, they took holidays, and he bought his toys. Ashley thought that they were very happy and content, until the day Andrew came home only 6 months before and told her he was leaving. He had a girlfriend, and she was 4 months pregnant with his child. To say Ashley was devastated would have been a massive understatement. For days she could do no more than hide under the covers of their bed and sob for the loss of the man she had loved. Then she got angry. She contacted a lawyer and got the documents written up. She got as much from him as she could, and then some. To make matters worse, she discovered that some of those close friends they had made, she had lost. Some were taking his side, and rumors flew around their group of friends about the breakdown of their relationship. But there were still some that stuck by her, those that knew the truth. The idea to move back to New Zealand was first put to her by her brother. Robert Preston was only older by 1 year, and they had been very close as they grew up, and now he was there to help and support her. After Andrew had made his great declaration, and Ashley could bring herself to phone him, Robbie was on the first plane to be at her side and help her pick up the pieces of her shattered life. At first, Ashley told him no. She didn't want to go back and couldn't see a life for herself over there after having lost touch with all their old friends many years ago. But with everything legal and financially now settled, Ashley found she wanted to be closer to her family. Robbie broke their hug and grabbed her bags. Without a word, Ashley followed him to his car, wiping the escaping drops of tears that were making their way down her cheeks. The drive to his house in the Hutt Valley was wonderfully long as he snaked his way around the bays and through the busy centre of Wellington. She loved the familiar sights and twisted her head to see changes that had happened since she was last home. He pulled up outside his house, threading his car in amongst the work vans and utes that were parked down the drive and narrow street. "Sorry, the granny flat isn't finished yet, so you'll be in Eric's old room for now. Don't worry, we fumigated it fully after he moved out," Robbie told her with a laugh as he opened his door. Ashley entered the brick part weatherboard house and followed him up the narrow hall to a small bedroom at the end, in which a single bed and a set of drawers were the only current occupants. All traces of her nephew had gone from the room. It was light, airy, and simple. Robbie heaved her bags onto the bed, and she watched as they bounced a little before settling, not looking forward to unpacking just yet. "Do you want to see where you'll be living until you get your own place?" he asked her. Why not? But I have a feeling Caitlin will be living in there before I ever will. Robbie, I don't intend to be living in the backyard of my brother's house for years to come, she said, as they came to the back door and stepped out into the noise of a building site. Ashley took in the scene before her and noticed there were a couple of very good-looking men working away. But I sure could get used to that view. Ashley, Robbie said, turning to her quickly. What? I'm not dead, she protested quietly as she inspected the building site. You leave them alone. Sure they would like a cup of tea or coffee at some point. Are you going back to work today? She asked him, still grinning. No, I am not, and I'm beginning to think I'll take a few weeks off just to keep an eye on you, he teased back. Robbie, glad you're here. I need a word. One of the good-looking guys Ashley had noticed came up to them. Carl, this is my sister Ashley, Robbie introduced them. So you're the one we're building this for. Nice to meet you. He shook her hand and she liked the feel of his grip. Looks like you guys are doing a good job, Ashley told him, as she looked past at the framework that was the focus of all the activity. If we're doing a good job, it would have been finished by now. We've unfortunately had some delays. Sorry, Carl apologized. As I understand it, these things always take longer than people think. If you need a hand, I know how to swing a hammer, she offered. I think we can handle it, thanks. Robbie, I need you to give me the go-ahead to get the Sparky in. We're just about ready to start Skinner, Carl told him. Robbie and the builder started to walk towards the frame structure, looking at the plans and discussing the progress. Ashley left them to it and headed back inside. As long as it got built and she had her own space, there was nothing really for her to worry about. In the kitchen she found the jug and filled it, and searched for the cups and coffee. She was just pouring the boiling water into the cups and enjoying the scent of the roasted beans when Robbie joined her. Making yourself at home? He asked as he accepted a cup from his sister. Of course, don't I always? Hey, just a warning, he said seriously. Those guys out there are all married, so look, but don't touch, he told her. Oh, that's no fun, she grinned at him. All right, I'll behave. But you know, I am single now. Don't you think I deserve to have some sort of fun, the same sort of fun my ex decided he wanted while we were still married? That spineless bastard did the dirty on you. Don't go doing the same to some other poor woman. I have no intention of sleeping with any married men, but if you know of any single good-looking ones, please send them my way. When did you get like this? Where is my sweet, innocent baby sister gone? He asked, laughing at her attitude. After you left a few months ago, I sat her down and sternly told her she had been a bloody idiot for the last 25 years. It's time I had some fun, and it's time I thought about myself for a change. It's time to put me first. Just don't do anything stupid. I don't plan to. She sipped her coffee and took it to look out the window at the building work. It all should be finished in about a week. Carl promised me, Robbie told her. A week? You're right. It's a mess out there, she said with a laugh. He promised me a week. So what's the plan? Robbie sat in his chair and looked at her as she turned and sat down on the couch. Well, first of all, get a car, get a job, get a place of my own, and get my life back on track. You don't need to worry about a home. You know you can stay with us for as long as you want. We'll see. You'll soon get sick of me. As for a car, he told her, I know someone who's selling one. I've done all the maintenance on it, so you know it's all good. Cool. What type of car? She asked eagerly. Why do you care? I have an image to project. Thank you very much. Plus, I'm sick of the safe and reliable type of cars the dickhead always insisted on me getting. Meanwhile, he got the racy ones. I think you'll like it. I've asked him to bring it round tonight after work. What colour is it? Really? That's all you're concerned about? If it looks good in colour? Of course, I told you. I have an image to project. She grinned over the cup, then changed the subject. When does Callie get home? She's going to be late tonight, so she said she'll pick up dinner on the way. What's wrong with you cooking for her? She asked. You've tasted my cooking. Yes, and she is a wise woman. What about the kids? Will they be here tonight as well? Caitlin will be, but Eric will come over tomorrow to see you. He's working tonight. But he asked if I could tell you welcome home, Robbie told her. You had your two kids too far apart. They didn't enjoy the same upbringing we had. No, they didn't. But that doesn't stop Eric's mates looking at Caitlin. He's had to have some words with some of them. Like father, like son, Ashley laughed. Who do you think told him what to say? She is old enough to make up her own mind, Ashley said. She may be at uni, but that doesn't mean Eric can't look out for her. And him being a cop helps too, Robbie chuckled. And I bet she hates that. Of course she does, but it makes me very happy. Later in the evening, after all the builders had left for the day, Ashley was just finishing unpacking when a car pulled up the drive. In the kitchen she could hear Robbie getting some plates out of the cupboard, and then Kelly and their daughter Caitlin walking through the back door. Ashley had only just started to walk out of the bedroom when she was confronted by someone flying at her. "Auntie Ashley!" Caitlin exclaimed and pulled her into a hug. "God, look at you. You're so beautiful," Ashley told her and meant it. Her niece was stunning, with honey blonde hair and big brown doe eyes. "I can see now why your dad has told Eric to keep an eye on you." "Oh, not you too. God, I thought if anyone would back me up, it would be you," she complained as the pair walked to the dining room, while her mother dished out the takeaway meal. "How are you, Kelly?" Ashley asked her sister-in-law. "I'm good. Welcome home," Kelly said, giving her a big hug and kiss. "Sit and eat." A loud knock at the front door interrupted them briefly, and Robbie jumped up to go answer it. Ashley could hear him talking mutely to someone, and then the door shut. "Sit another place, we have a guest," Robbie called just before coming back into the dining room. Behind him was a tall man with short, dark hair. As he came into the light, Ashley instantly recognized him. "Tommy!" She leaped from her chair and hugged him. "Ash, you're looking good," he said as he wrapped his arms around her. "And I'm a bit old for Tommy now." "No, you're not. You'll never be too old for that," she said as she winked at him. "You're the only person to still call me that," he laughed and blushed slightly. "Come and eat before it goes cold. Just as well I got enough. I had a feeling you might be coming round tonight," Kelly said, laughing at his embarrassment. "Maybe that is because I told you he was," Robbie said to his wife as he was already helping himself to the contents of the takeaway containers. Thomas Williams was Robbie's oldest friend. He had lived around the corner from them growing up, and he was always around at their house. Tom, as he preferred to be known by, had become one of the family. At one stage, even calling their parents Mum and Dad whenever he just walked in the door announcing he was home. Their mother had always had a soft spot for him. Robbie had even mentioned several times that she preferred Tom to her own kids. "Well, this can't really be a coincidence that you turn up on my first night back," Ashley said, accepting a plate from Kelly. "No, it's not. Robbie mentioned you were going to be needing a car, and I have one for sale," he said, as he sat beside her, tucking into a plate of Chinese food in front of him. "He told me he knew someone, but wouldn't tell me what the car is or even the colour." "Enough. You can see it after dinner," Robbie told her with a grin. "How's things, Tom?" "Good. Work is great," Tom said, as he sat at the table with them, his eyes flicking to Ashley, then down at the food before him. After dinner and leaving Caitlin cleaning up, Ashley followed her brother and his oldest friend out of the door into the street. Sitting by the curb and glinting in the streetlight was a bright red Toyota Supra. She circled it, looking at all the panels. "Has it had any rust taken out?" Ashley asked. "A little, but nothing major," Robbie told her. "Any accidents?" She studied it from the front, running an eye down each side. "Nope," Tom said. "Can you pop the bonnet?" She stood waiting for him to do so. Lifting the large bonnet, she peered inside. "When was it last serviced and had an oil change?" "You're as bad as your brother," Tom told her as he came to stand beside her. "Who do you think you taught me?" She grinned up at him. "I've done all the servicing on it since Tom bought it 3 years ago. It's in good working order and everything checks out," Robbie said, coming to shut the bonnet. "Can I take it for a test drive?" Ashley asked. "Sure. Here." Tom tossed the keys to her and went to the passenger door. "Don't speed, Ash. Eric won't be able to get you out of a speeding fine," Robbie warned her. "I will drive like a little old lady." Ashley got behind the wheel and adjusted the seat for her short frame. Firing the car up, she stopped and listened to the engine as it purred. "Sounds good." Gently she eased it away from the curb and gripped the wheel. She could feel the car wanting to go faster under her, and gently pushed down on the accelerator, making it leap with the increased speed. Ashley grinned at the feeling of excitement it gave her. Heading to the main road, Tom glanced over. Where are you going? I thought you were just going round the block, he asked, clearly confused. No, it needs a proper run before I decide. I'll do the bridge run, which should be enough to see if I want it. Ashley grinned back at him and sped up as she merged with the traffic. She liked the handling of the car and the way it responded to her touch. The feeling of speed at her beck and call sent a thrill through her. Andrew had always had the high-performance car, and she the small, compact, reliable, cute and safe one. To drive this now, she was beginning to feel her freedom. Past Stokes Valley and up beside the river she took the car, getting slightly impatient when they got behind a slow driver. She pulled back and slowed down to match their speed, and when the turn-off came, Ashley rejoiced in being free of them. She made the turn and headed over the bridge at Silverstream, then stopped at the red light, which barred her way onto the motorway. The light turned green and Ashley pushed her foot down on the accelerator. The speed as she took off from the lights was wonderful. The motor roared and the car leapt from the line. Thankfully, the traffic was light in the midweek evening, and before she knew it, she was passing the speed limit. Ashley could sense Tom keeping an eye on the speed and laughed. "Don't you trust me?" she asked him. "I've never driven with you before." "I am a good driver." She reduced the speed slightly and headed south to the next bridge. "Did you learn here or over in Oz?" "In Oz," she replied. They remained quiet until they reached the next bridge and turned onto it, snaking their way through the smaller streets to reach her brother's house. A street away, Ashley slowed the car and pulled up to the curb, then turned the key. Silence descended on the two occupants and Ashley turned to Tom. "What are you doing?" Tom asked, looking around them. "You and I are going to negotiate a price now before we get back to my brother. He's not going to take that from me." "Okay. What do you think it's worth?" Tom asked, his face serious. "Nuh-uh. What are you looking for?" she countered immediately. "Well, I was thinking around 15 for it." 15? You must be joking. For this car at this age? I don't think so. How about 5? Now you're the one to have a laugh. It's in good nick, well looked after, and you even know the mechanic. 13, Tom counted. I do know the mechanic, but I also know that it's getting a bit long in the tooth and has seen a lot of Ks. 6, she said. You're going to have to come up a lot more than that, Ash. You can still get parts for it easily enough, and it's very reliable. 10. Tommy, she smiled and shook her head. There is no way this car is worth 10. 8. That's a bit better, but I still feel it could get more elsewhere. I have another mate who's interested in it. 9. All cash in hand tonight. 8.5. She counted and held out her hand. Cash? Tom pondered for a moment, then made one more counter. 8.5 and a date. Ashley blinked for a moment at the strange offer and dropped her hand. That's a little unusual. What sort of date? She asked. The going to a pub sort of date? You and me. As in just friends, or start off just friends and see what happens? He laughed at her reaction. Just friends, Ashley. Good, because you're too much like a brother for anything else. Okay, you're on. 8.5 and a date. She extended her hand again and he shook it. She started the car and drove the short distance to her brother's house and watched as he came out the door. How'd it go? Robbie asked as she got out of the car. Great, the deal is done, Ashley told him. What? No, I was going to negotiate. She drove a hard bargain, Tom told him as he leaned on the car, his hands shoved firmly into the pockets of his jeans. Well, what did you agree on? Robbie asked. 8.5 cash, Ashley left him and went inside to get the money. When she came out, she could see her brother wasn't happy. What's wrong? 8.5. You got him down to 8.5? He asked. Yeah, why? Do you think it's too high? No. Tom and I had already agreed on 10, he exclaimed. I have always told you, Robbie, I'm the better negotiator. Have you got the paperwork? We'll get this all done and then I'll drive you home, she said to Tom. Sure. With the signing of the papers, she got behind the wheel again and drove Tom the short distance to his house. He only lived a few streets away. Pulling up outside, he undid his seatbelt and sat for a moment. I'm going to miss this car, he told her. I'll let you visit with it, Ashley grinned. Thanks. You want to come in for a coffee? Bit late for a coffee for me. How about a tea? I have that too. He opened his door, and Ashley followed him inside. His house was not what she expected. The Tom of old, she remembered, was a very messy person, but the house she now found herself in was spotless. He headed to the kitchen and put the jug on. "Nice place. When did you grow up and get tidy?" she asked, following along behind. When the ex left, he leaned up against the bench and smiled at her as the jug began to boil. "Robbie told me it was bad. Seems we've both had the dirty done on us. Maybe we should have introduced them to each other and run away together." Tom gave her a smile that seemed a little sad. And she gave a small laugh at the suggestion, a little unsure if he was being serious or not. "So you became a neat freak?" "Sort of. It started as a purge to get rid of her stuff after I just kept it tidy." The jug finished boiling and he made the tea. "How long has it been?" she asked as she took the mug from his hands. 2 years. "Any girlfriends since?" They sat at the dining table and drank their tea. "No one specific. She hurt me pretty bad," Tom answered. "So it doesn't get any easier." Ashley placed her mug down on the table and played with the handle. "It does, eventually. I just wonder if we had have had kids, if it would have made things different. He may have stayed," she said quietly. "You can't know that. All those years he lied to me. Told me he didn't want kids if we couldn't have them naturally, all the while looking for a new partner to have them with. They made my divorce a lot harder. I only get to see the kids when it suits her," Tom told her. "How old are they?" Ashley asked, realizing she didn't know much about his 2 children. "Trent is coming up to 14 and Shelley is 13. "You know, I always thought it would be you who cheated," she told him with a slight grin. "Me? Why would you think that?" "You and Mitchell Richmond. I thought you were so much alike, running around chasing everything in a skirt." "Mitch did that, not me. I had girlfriends, but they all dumped me," Tom told her. "Do you hear from Mitchell and the others?" "Occasionally, but not very often. He's on his 3rd marriage, by the way." "Who, Mitchell?" Ashley asked. "Yep." "Did any of the marriages stick for the others?" This turn in the conversation made Ashley very curious about their old friends. "Yeah, Nate and Kimberly are still married. So is Jackie and Cade, but they're a bit uppity these days. I don't have much to do with them. I heard Mitchell Burns got married. Ken's divorced, Perry's still married, and they all live in the UK. Megan is still with her man, and I lost touch with Emma, which is not surprising after what happened. The infamous fight, I remember." Ashley raised her eyebrows at the memory. "You all ganged up on me. Not one of you wanted to listen to my side," Tom said. "I did, eventually. I could never stay mad at you." Ashley laughed and picked up her mug to drink. "I believed you too. I still do." "Thanks," he said with a grin. Ashley put her mug down. "I should be getting back. Robbie will be ringing soon to find out where I am. He was always overprotective of you. Pain in my ass, you mean. But couldn't have done what I have without him. He's been amazing these last 6 months. Now, with me living under the same roof as him again, things will go back to the way they used to be. Us fighting and getting on each other's nerves." "You're his only sister, Ash. You can't blame him for wanting to make sure you're safe and protected." He reached across the table and placed a hand on hers. "And I always had my surrogate brother who would back him up." She smiled up at him. "Things change, Ash. Just say the word and I'll be there to defend you." He lifted his hand off hers and stood with her. "About that date, when were you thinking?" She picked up her empty cup and took it to the kitchen. "How about Friday night? There's a band that plays in the local pub who are quite good." "Sounds good. Call me with where and when. Thanks for the tea and chat. And thanks for the car," she told him. "You're welcome. I'll call you." Tom led her to the front door and opened it for her. "It's great to see you again, Ash. I'm really pleased you've come home." "So am I. See you Friday." As she went to pass him, he bent down and kissed her cheek. "See you Friday." Ashley heard the door close after, and she'd gone through, opening the car door and getting behind the wheel. As she sat for a moment before starting it up, she saw the curtain move aside and started to back down the drive. The change in Tom was amazing to her. As they had grown up, he had always treated her like her brother had, like she was an annoyance, and then later would not talk much to her, unless it was to protect her. As she didn't have time over the next few days to contemplate this change in Tom, she had her own life to work out. By the end of the week, she had her bank account, driver's license, and car registration sorted, and even reconfirmed her old tax number. She had lined up 2 job interviews, and they had been attended. By the Friday morning, a firm job offer came from one of them. She was happy and thanking her lucky stars that she had such a great boss back in Australia who had managed to pull a few strings for her. Friday afternoon came, and she remembered that Tom was supposed to be taking her on their date, and she thought that it was funny that she was actually looking forward to it. That anticipation turned to disappointment, as late in the afternoon Tom rang to cancel. His ex-wife had decided to drop their kids off to him a night early, and he would have to replan their night out. Ashley heard the slight anger in Tom's voice as he told her. She was not sure how to interpret it. A week after she had arrived back in New Zealand, Ashley and Kelly pulled up the drive to find that it was devoid of work vehicles and silence in the backyard. They pulled their purchases from the back of the car and headed inside. The back door swung inwards, and the noise of cricket commentary spilled out to greet them. They walked through the house and found Robbie fully ensconced in his recliner chair with a bottle of beer in his hand, eyes glued to the screen as he watched little men dressed in white chasing a red ball. "Nice to see someone has been busy," Kelly said to her husband. "I've been busy," he protested half-heartedly as he lifted the bottle to his lips. He spotted all the bags they carried. "You've been buying the shops out of stock again, Ash?" "There was so much more that I wanted, but I'll have to wait for a bit. I'll just put these things in my room." Ashley was slowly buying things for the small flat that was supposed to be built in the backyard, and so far she was enjoying starting from scratch again. From what she had seen over the last week, the flat was progressing at a steady rate, and it would soon be done, but not in the week as Carl had promised. It was now skin, and the electricals had all been completed, as well as plumbing. Things were getting close, and along with her sister-in-law, she'd been picking out paint colours and curtains as well as furnishings. After dumping her purchases in the small bedroom, Ashley rejoined Kelly and Robbie in the lounge, grabbing a beer from the fridge along the way. Sitting on the couch, she was not really watching the screen and did not hear the door until Tom walked in. She smiled up at him, and after accepting a beer from Robbie, he sat next to her. "Sorry about last night," Tom said quietly. "It's all good. So where are they today?" she asked, referring to his kids. "Back with their mum. Some family thing on her side she forgot about again," he said. His mood seemed a little dark as he talked about them. "Are you two going to chit-chat all through this?" Robbie said loudly at them. "It's called being social, brother of mine. Just because you can only focus on one thing at a time doesn't mean the rest of us can't, and you just missed a 6. She laughed as he quickly turned his attention back to the television. "So what's happening?" Tom asked Robbie, and then sat there listening to the statistics and strategies as he gave the rundown of the first 10 overs of the game that would last 5 days. Ashley smirked behind the neck of the bottle of beer as she watched Tom calmly and patiently listen to his friends babbling. Soon her brother was back watching the television, and she continued to talk with Tom. Their conversation, while mostly ignored by Robbie, was noticed by Kelly, and some of their comments to each other had her eyebrows rising, though neither saw her reaction. After one particular round of teasing that sounded definitely like Ashley was flirting with Tom, Kelly stepped into the living room from the deck outside where she'd been reading a magazine in the warm sunshine. "Ashley, can I grab you for a minute and get your opinion on the paint colour? I'm not sure about some of them now," Kelly asked her. "Sure. Back in a tick," Ashley said to Tom and Robbie, who was not listening. She followed Kelly out to the little flat and looked at the different patches of colour she had painted on the wall. "Which one aren't you sure about?" "The pinkish one. I think it might be a bit much. Just a bit girly. What else did you want to ask me?" Ashley turned to her, seeing through her sister-in-law's ruse to get her alone. "What's with the flirting between you and Tom?" Kelly asked with a small smile. "What flirting? We were just talking." "That was flirting, Ashley. All the smiles, the little touches, the little jokes. I would be careful if I were you." "Why?" Ashley asked. "Why?" she asks. "Because he likes you, that is why." "He does not. He was just teasing and I was teasing back." "You better be sure that that is the way of it. I like Tom, and I would hate to see his heart break again after what Cherie did to him," Kelly said. "You like Tom?" Ashley asked teasingly, and raised an eyebrow at the comment. "You know damn well not like that. He is a good friend of ours, and we were there for him when he needed us. just as he has been there for us. He's part of our family, Kelly told her. I know that. He's like a brother to me. It's always been that way. From outside they heard two male voices coming towards them, and Kelly looked out. You better make sure he understands where you stand, Ash. I don't want to see him hurt. I will, she whispered, just as the two men walked into the room. She saw Tom's eyes search her out, and she turned away from him, wondering if what Kelly had said was true. We can't make up our minds. What do you two think? Kelly asked them. I like the one on the end, to the right, Robbie said. I prefer the left, Tom gave his opinion. Which one do you like, Ash? After all, you're going to be living in it. Like Kelly, I can't make up my mind. Not the pink one, though. It's just a bit too much, Ashley replied. Robbie, can you come inside and help me with the fabric samples we got? They might help, Kelly asked, taking her husband's arm and leading him out. When Ashley was sure they were out of earshot, she turned to Tom. Can I ask you something? Sure, shoot. Tom turned from studying the colours to face her. Did you think I was flirting with you when we were talking inside? Why would you ask that? Kelly has been protective of you and told me to stop flirting. If I was, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. I don't want to lead you on. God, she can really get into people's heads. No, I did not think you were flirting, and yes, I do like you. You've always been able to make me laugh. He smiled down at her. No, I haven't, Ashley protested. You have, I just never let you see it. You were Robbie's kid sister, which made you my kid sister. So we're good, and we have nothing to worry about then? Ashley asked. We're all good. Is that why she dragged you out here? He asked, looking back at the house. Yeah, and probably why she's taking so long with those samples. She'll be making sure I have enough time to set you straight. She thinks you like me in that awkward way. Do you like me too? He asked her with a twinkle in his eye and placing an arm around her. That can stop right now, Tommy Williams. She laughed and went to dig an elbow into his ribs. Except he was so much taller than her, she ended up hitting his hip. Oi, get your filthy hands off my sister, Robbie called out as the couple were coming back into the room. But mate, can't you see it's love? He reached around and held her tightly while she tried to push him off her, laughing. Anyway, that's what Kelly thinks. You told him, Kelly said, going bright red. Of course I did. Finally, Ashley managed to free herself from Tom's arms. I didn't want him thinking the idea came from me. What idea? Robbie asked, clearly confused at the conversation. Kelly thought that Tommy and I were flirting inside where the cricket was on, and before you jump to conclusions as well, we weren't. It was just a bit of fun. She straightened herself out and turned her burning cheeks to the colour choices. Now, can we decide on which one? That's the end of chapter 1. Hit the like button and I might put up chapter 2. Let's serialise this. Thanks a lot. And if you're new to my channel, please subscribe. Thank you. Bye.
Oh.